Let's now shift focus over to Turkey, which is facing one of the most crucial presidential elections. The Supreme Election Council has declared a runoff in 2 weeks, which means there will be a second round of voting across the country on 28th of May, barely a fortnight away. Both President Erdogan and Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu have accepted a second round contest in Turkey. A candidate needs 50% of the total votes to win. After counting 99% of the votes, the Election Council head declared that the incumbent President Erdogan received 49.4% against his rival, who scored 44.96%. And the third candidate in the race, ultra-nationalist Sinan Ogan, has emerged as a potential kingmaker with just over 5% of the vote. For now, Erdogan is ahead by 5 points and is most likely to ride his stronger than expected performance. Can his rival claw back? Let's try and get in some perspective from Jamil Jaffer, who's the founder and executive director of National Security Institute and is joining me live right now. Many thanks to you, Jamil, for joining in. Now, the second round is on 28th of May. Will the opposition nation alliance be able to narrow this margin of almost 5 points, in that too in just 2 weeks?
Well, it's a great question. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks, but they're certainly going to try and get in as much as they can, as much advocacy before the Turkish people. The challenges that President Erdogan is facing are twofold. Primarily, inflation, the huge loss in the value of the lira, over 83% just in the last year alone. And obviously the outcome and the blame that's been placed on President Erdogan related to the major earthquake and the loss of over 50,000 lives there in Turkey, potentially in part due to lax building codes.
Right. Turkey has become a classic illiberal democracy where the ruler maintains the forms of democracy but also uses his power to hamstring the opposition and monopolize the media to win election. Have such factors and the earthquake, as you rightly mentioned, impacted Erdogan's performance in the election we just witnessed?
Well, we certainly saw the mayor of Istanbul removed from election contention by the Supreme Election Council for insulting the council. We also saw use of the media, which is largely controlled by the Turkish government, to potentially, advocate on behalf of the president. And then, of course, we saw the threats made against Twitter and the Twitter platform, asking them to shut down accounts of the opposition. And so we see this kind of effort ongoing. And so it's hard to call these free and fair elections. At the same time, it's surprising that President Erdogan has had such an uphill battle and demonstrates the lack of support that he has amongst the Turkish people and the challenges he faces going into this runoff in just a few days from now.
Absolutely. And in fact, let me delve deeper into when you say that it's far from being called a free and fair election. The International Monitoring Group, OSCE, has also highlighted several flaws in the last election, pointing out that Erdogan and the ruling parties had enjoyed an unjustified advantage, including biased media coverage, something that you also referred to. Could you throw more light on these reports and the factors that have made it such an unfair election?
Well, one has to understand that in Turkey, of course, the government controls a significant portion of the media, and the portion of the media it doesn't control, it has significant influence over. That's the nature of a state that has had the same party and the same individual in power now for 20 years. If we remember, Erdogan was first elected in 2002 when he was the beneficiary actually of another earthquake that took the then ruling party out of power, the twin earthquakes in 1999. There were 17,000 deaths there, led to his Justice and Development Party coming to power. He was prime minister then. They then modified the constitution, and he was elected president in 2007 and has been reelected ever since. And so this is part of the challenge in as you point out, sort of a one-party nation. And so what's actually surprising here is that even with all that influence, President Erdogan has faced an uphill battle in this election and may very well face a significant challenge in a few days from now as we come to this runoff.
Right. And in fact, I would want to know from you, why are people choosing to vote for Erdogan? Because remember, his performance has been quite a sharp contrast to what the polls were predicting.
Well, President Erdogan obviously, has put in place policies that some folks in the Turkish population appreciate and like. He's demonstrated independence from NATO, independence from the Western alliance. He's bought weapons from Russia. He's gone after the Kurds that are supported by the United States and the alliance in the Syrian conflict. So that plays well with certain parts of the Turkish population, but of course it creates problems for him within NATO, where Turkey has the second largest military, and that's one of the challenges that President Erdogan faces. Of course, his management of the economy has been challenged, and these concerns about building codes as well as the lackadaisical response to this major earthquake have also hurt him. And even though with the significant control that President Erdogan has over the media and the like, that's why he's facing these challenges that we see now going forward.
Right, and now let's talk about his opponent, Kilic Darulu. He, of course, as we all know, is also facing an uphill struggle in the Turkish runoff. But do you think he has a sliver of hope?
Well, it's really hard to know. I think he's performed better than anybody expected in this election. And so I think that's a benefit to him. We did see another candidate drop out of the race, in part due to concerns about a sex tape scandal. Allegedly, this is a candidate who run against President Erdogan multiple times in the past. And so that also has had an impact on the elections. And so we're seeing a developing scenario. We'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks. There may be more revelations that either help Kilic Darulu or hurt him. We'll see what happens in the next 10 days or so.
All right, Jamil, I think you've thrown a lot of light on that entire runoff bit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement as the date in fact approaches. But thank you so much, Jamil Jaffer, for joining in on this discussion and making those very significant points.